Well, hopefully it's going to work. All right, so we are going to cover elements 8 and 9. So I figured it's been a few weeks since we've done these. Howdy, hopefully you are, it doesn't matter whether you've read them or not. I really don't care if you've read, if you've never opened the life book, if you know, whatever. We all are at different places in our journey, and it's been really interesting. It took me a while to decide that I actually wanted to read this book. I've said before, I'm not a self-help, touchy-feely, share, write out my feelings. I'll tell you how I feel, but I'm not like a journaler at all. And so that I was very resistant to the book. Plus I got to back, if you were back at the beginning of the first few elements, when I got to element 3, when I was reading it on my own, I stopped because it was like kind of this psychological, I didn't really agree with some of the things he was saying. And where I am in my faith, it just felt very contradictory to what I believe. And so I just kind of like put it aside and was like, maybe that book's not for me. But then people said, do we have a book club or anything where we're doing this? And I was like, let's just do it. So here we are. And we have been doing one element every 3 weeks, really trying to do every other week, but life is crazy. And so maybe we can squeeze a couple of elements in every couple of weeks. I think that 10 and 11 also are ones that can be done in a week. Yeah, and so is 12. So I think when we have elements that can be done in a single week, we'll try to cover 2 elements when we get together, and that will just get us moving through the book a little bit faster, and it'll be before 2025 before we get through. So element 8 is, first of all, learning to eat every 3 hours. Hopefully, for most of you, you've been doing Optavia for a little while. And so, see, we've got, who is that? Kim is having her dinner right now. Good, enjoy it. I saw some leafy greens. That's great. And I don't think most of us really have trouble with the whole learning to eat every 3 hours, but it really is important. And I can't tell you how many times I have seen people comment, or I've had people say, I really struggle to eat every 3 hours. And that's not been a problem for me. I fortunately work from home, so I'm not constantly on the go. I'm not in and out of meetings. I'm not a teacher in a classroom, which I know, or I'm not a healthcare provider, a nurse who is, in the hospital and having to see patients. So I understand that people do struggle. It hasn't been a struggle for me, but I try really hard to be patient and understanding. But it is really important that you try your best to eat every 2 to 3 hours. He says 3 hours in the book, but to be honest, I mean, and in the guide, it says every 2 to 3 hours. And I think that is a little bit more realistic for most people based on, on your lifestyle. So, and I'll talk about how to do that in just a second, but I love that he said, one study involving close to 2,700 women and men found that those who ate at least 6 times a day, ate fewer calories, consumed healthier foods, and had a lower body mass index than those who ate fewer than 4 times over a 24-hour period. So I found that was very interesting, very encouraging. And I know personally that I've tried all kinds of diets and nothing worked. And of course, as I've said before, this wasn't going to work for me either. Like I just knew, no, just one more diet and it's not going to work. And lo and behold, apparently my body really likes me to eat 6 times a day. Like it just was the thing that I really believe that was the thing that put me over the top as far as why this program works. And so I think it's really important that you work towards that. Basically, I eat every 2.5 hours is really what I do. Sometimes it's a little closer to 2, sometimes it's a little closer to 3. Throughout the day, it just kind of depends. But the best way to figure it out is to take the total number of hours that you're awake during the day, divide it by 6, and that's how far apart you need to space your fuelings. So for me, I'm typically up 15 hours a day. So divide that by 6, that's 2.5 hours. So that's about what I do. However, I've also had people say, what do you do if you wake up late? So you wake up past your normal first fueling time. Do you eat 2 fuelings together? And the answer is no. If you normally get up at 6 o'clock and you on Saturday morning you sleep until 10, get up and have your first fueling at 10 o'clock. And then if you have to eat every 2 hours instead of every 3 hours in order to space them out, then do that. But don't eat 2 fuelings together unless you get to the end of the day and you still have 2 fuelings left. Then eat 2 together if you have to. But don't eat 2 together at the start of the day when you still have the whole day that you can kind of still spread your fuelings out. It's just important for your body. He talks about it a lot, about how having that constantly feeding your metabolism. As a matter of fact, there's a couple of really good graphics at some point in Habits
Which
of Health.
book is it both books or is this the book?
Well, yeah. So I kind of do both at the same time. And so I've
read them some, but
yeah, I hop back and forth between the 2 of them. He does talk about the hours in the day. Basically, he talks about doing the Habits of Health clock, and he talks about that.
Can you give me a page number? I'm kind of
yes. So I'm starting on page 183 is where I'm starting. That's where element 8 starts. It actually starts on page 180, but what I'm reading is on page 183. About in the middle of the page, he also says, we've discovered that sitting down to eat 3 meals a day in our modern world is very difficult. Eating so much food at a time is too much for many, and the post-ingestion period creates he uses the word slugginess, and I don't know if he meant sluggishness, and if an editor just didn't catch that. Yeah, because I've never heard the word slugginess before. As an English teacher, I probably should have looked it up to go, is that even a word? Because I have students who use words all the time, and I'm like, that's not a word. They like to make I have high school students, and they like to make things up. Also, waiting as many as 6 hours between meals can make you feel shaky, tired, and weak as they become hypoglycemic, low blood sugar. This is especially true in both pre-diabetics and diabetics, as they do not handle fasting well. And I thought that was very interesting. I'm not pre-diabetic or diabetic, thank the Lord. I've said this before, I'm so incredibly grateful that I didn't develop health issues. How I managed to weigh over 300 pounds for as long as I did and not become diabetic, not have high blood pressure, I don't know, God just totally spared me from those things. And I'm very grateful for that. But I do know that there were times where if I had a high carbohydrate breakfast by 10 o'clock, I was shaky and I needed protein like right away. So, and that's a hypoglycemic kind of thing apparently going on. So when we met the last time, we did cover some of in Habits of Health 2.2, which starts way back on page 176, but I wanted to look just for a little bit at pages 187 and 188, and that's the pages right before he talks about what you should have in your refrigerator, what you should have in your pantry. We went over that a few weeks ago when we met. But he talks about creating a macro environment of health, your leptogenic surroundings. And on page 187, and this is all leading up to me poking the bear, so get ready. He said, food, especially high-calorie junk food filled with fat and sugar, affects our brain receptors in just the same way that drugs and alcohol do. And the diet industry, the food industry, and when I say diet, not as in losing weight, but the people who give us things for our daily diets, have processed our foods so that they are higher in sugar and carbs and fats, so that we are addicted to those things. And it's crazy to me that we have let this happen. What he says in the next paragraph is, in your kitchen, you have a 100% chance of finding food. All right, in most people's kitchens, you know, we're all very fortunate. If you're doing Optavia, you clearly are not dealing with food issues in your home, as far as not being able to afford food, because you have to spend money for these things. So we are the fortunate that can go to the grocery store and buy food, can go to Optavia and buy fuelings. However, most of the foods that we have in our kitchens are obviously not helping us. One thing that when I read this, I kind of laughed, because he actually talks about it somewhere else. I always would say, I eat processed foods, and I didn't eat processed foods most of the time. I would have to say I would eat fast food, but I cook, and I would make breakfast, but I would make muffins, I would make cookies, I would make bread, I would make, but I made everything. I made my own pizza sauce. I made my own, everything I made. Yes, I made my own things, but I wasn't making the things that made me healthy. I was fooling myself into thinking that, well, just because I don't buy processed foods, like I make my own bread instead of buying bread, it wasn't helping me. I was not creating a healthy environment for myself. So at the end, right before it says, do low-fat diets cause weight gain, it says there's a tremendous discrepancy and confusion on what is healthy to eat. Low carb, high carb, low fat, high fat, as well as all kinds of theories and conflicting information. Exhausting debates on calories are not the same, and the same goes for the battle between saturated versus unsaturated fats. And it goes on, and it goes on to the whole net carb debate. And somebody actually posted on the 5-in-1 newbies, no longer they be a newbies, the 5-in-1 newbies group, about tortillas, which is not the first time that post has been made. People ask about that all the time, or other products, and they're like, well, it has 2 net carbs. Why can't we have it when the Optavia fuelings have 15 carbs? Well, here's the thing. I'm going to read from 2 articles that are both from very reputable sources. The first one comes from the American Diabetes Association. I think we can all say that they are a fairly trustworthy organization. And they have an article that's all about carbs. It's called Get to Know Carbs, or Understanding Carbs. Get to Know Carbs. Get to Know Carbs is what it is. And I can send you the link to this article if you want to see it. While you might see it on some food packaging, the term net carbs does not have a legal definition and is not used by the Food and Drug Administration or recognized by the American Diabetes Association. The FDA recommends using total carbohydrates on the nutrition facts label. So right there, please hear that. The Food and Drug Administration and the American Diabetes Association, if you cannot trust them and their judgment, there's something wrong. It goes on to say net carbs are determined by subtracting any fiber or sugar alcohols on the label from the total carbohydrates. This is assuming that fiber and sugar alcohols are not absorbed or metabolized, but this is not always true. And some are partially digested and therefore still provide calories as well as impact blood sugar. The equation used to calculate net carbs is not entirely accurate because the contribution of fiber and sugar alcohols to total carbohydrates depends on the types present. The type of fiber or sugar alcohols used is not indicated on the nutrition facts label. Therefore, the effect on blood glucose and possible insulin therapy adjustments cannot be determined precisely. For this reason, we recommend using the total grams of carbohydrates and closely monitoring your blood sugar when consuming foods high in fiber or sugar alcohol, blah, blah, blah. The other one is, and then I'm going to let you guys talk about this, is from WebMD, which I think is also a pretty safe place to go for some information. And it is, the title of the article is When a Carbs, Not a Carb, the Net Carb Debate. And I'm skipping the first paragraph, but it says, in an effort to cash in on the low carb craze, food manufacturers have invented a new category of carbohydrates known as net carbs, which promises to let dieters eat the sweet and creamy foods they crave without suffering the carb consequences. But the problem is there is no legal definition of the net, active, or impact carbs popping up on food labels and advertisements. The only carbohydrate information regulated by the FDA is provided in the nutrition facts label, which lists total carbohydrates and breaks them down into dietary fibers and sugars. Any information or claims about carbohydrate content that appears outside of the box have not been evaluated by the FDA. I cannot stress enough how important it is to read labels. Read the nutrition label. Don't read all of the other little banners and medallions and things that they have floating all around it. Pay attention to what is in the nutrition label. And if you have blood sugar issues at all, please do not be swayed by so many net carbs. You just, unless you are a dietitian or you really know that food, be responsible for your health and don't let somebody else dictate what is good for you. That it's so concerns. It's so concerns.
Her son was here. Yeah. Taking extra precautions treats they bring home. Really excited.
Go ahead. I'm going to mute people. If you need to unmute yourself because you want to say something, that's great. I still want to kick you out, but I do want to hear. What do you guys think about the whole net carbs, and what has been your experience? If you want to disagree with me, that's totally fine. I'm happy to have you disagree, because I don't expect that everybody's going to agree with what I say. But chime in. What do you think?
I agree. There's a lot of deception on labels, etc. I love how the calories on those bars, I looked at some today, are hidden. It says low this, da, 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 and then you go 408, you peel it up. I don't think it's accidental. So I'm glad to know the truth.
Yeah. So, that WebMD article, I'm pretty sure it's in the WebMD article further on, and it might have been in the other one, but I think it's in the WebMD article. They talk about, I think it's an Atkins bar. It's some bar that says, it has 2 net carbs, but it really has 30 carbohydrates and 260 calories. It doesn't matter how many carbs, or if you aren't moving enough, if you are not burning enough calories to accommodate for those 260 calories and 30 carbohydrates, then it doesn't matter. Like it just is, it's crazy to me. And one thing that has been that I have taken from Optavia, that I have learned so much, is just the importance of reading the labels. Read the labels. Yeah. Anyone else?
I don't have a good handle on how many carbs to have as I transition. I've been transitioning for over a year.
Yeah.
But I do calories, but I don't, and it's been fine. But it makes me feel a little uneasy. I don't understand my macros enough to get the carbs, you know.
My understanding is that you don't want your carbs to exceed your protein, but they can be fairly close. So if you are like, while you're having Optavia Fuelings, while you're on 5-in-1, you're having about I'm pretty sure it's 80 to 100 grams of carbohydrates. And so as you transition off and you are eating more, and trust me, I'm learning all of this myself. Like this is my last week of transition, but I read a lot and I leave nothing to chance.
And you explain it well and simply. I appreciate that.
Thank you. My understanding is, you're aiming for, depending on how many calories you're going to end up needing to eat. I am shooting for around, my TEE says 1,800 calories, and there's no way I can eat 1,800 calories right now. I can't imagine putting anything else into my diet that's going to get me up to 1,800 calories, unless it's bad food, and I'm not going to eat bad food. So, but I'm aiming for about 130 to 150 grams of protein and probably 120 grams of carbs ish is kind of what I'm looking at. I'm using a great app that's called Prosper. It's spelled Prospre, and it is a food. Like you enter your food, it tells you your calories, your protein, your fat, your carbs. You can give it a range of calories that you're trying to shoot for, the number of meals you're going to have. And I've been kind of testing it out over these weeks of transition just to get used to logging the things that I'm eating. A lot of the Optavia Fuelings are actually in there, which is really nice. So I've been able to use it that way. But it's a great, it was one of the ones that I did a little bit of research of what is a good to use, and that one seems to work really well. I'm using the free version. I know a lot of people use MyFitnessPal, but I think you really have to pay for that one in order to get any decent features. But I don't know. So does anybody else use an app for logging their food? Kim, are you maintenance already?
I am actually on 4 and 2 right now, with the last 10 or 15 to recompose. So I could transition in any minute.
Okay. Have you done this before and you've gone back to it, or you're just first time?
First time here, first time just learning about transitioning. Awesome. And it's absolutely scary to me, and saw your wonderful post, and I'm like, this lady knows what she's talking about with transition, and I could learn a thing or two. So that's why I'm here.
Well, here's the deal with, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on transition, but if you ever want to talk to me about transition and just one-on-one, let's talk about it. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do a Zoom call with people about transition sometime, because honestly, what makes me really, my mission at this point I mean, my mission was to get people through 5 and 1 and stick to the program. And that's still there. I'm not going away from that 5 and 1 group. But now, because there is so little information out there about transition, girls, I am here for you, and I have done all 6 weeks. Well, this is week 6 for me, of transition. I have followed the process, and it's totally possible. And I truly believe I will not put the weight back on. I truly believe that I figured it out. I know how to do this. And I also have 21,000 women, well, and men who are, well, it's probably 21,000 women and 500 men who are watching me. And it's a little scary, but it also really holds me accountable. And I love being a coach to 21,000 people.
Lizabeth, are you an official Optavia coach?
I am. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I am. And I actually, this is really exciting. Hang on. I've got these weird things popping up on my screen. I actually today somehow, and honestly, I've never I've never advertised, I've never promoted, I've never tried to talk somebody into being a client of mine. All of my clients have just come to me and said, hey, I need you to coach me. And I do. Why does it keep saying, do you want to? Don't ask again. Stop asking me. I became an associate director today.
Yay! Congratulations!
Oh, thank you. It's really weird. I've done absolutely nothing.
What does that mean?
Yeah. I just make more money. I get a higher percentage off of what my clients buy. So it's just because I have enough clients that are consistently buying every month. That's all. So
yeah. Elizabeth, what was the name of that app? Prosper? How do you spell it?
Called Prosper. Yeah, PROSPRE.
Oh, PRE.
That's my problem.
Yeah.
What I find so interesting is, I actually reached my healthy BMI in July, which is why, I was like, oh, I'm going to transition. And then I was like, no, I'm going to go on 4 and 2 active, because after conference, they rolled out active, and I'm like, I'm going to try that as a client and a coach. And I've just been really kind of scared. And then I'm like, oh, well, now I'll lose 15 more pounds and get lower into my BMI. And it's interesting because, I've successfully transitioned so many clients, but I have not. And I don't feel like an expert, even though I have guided others to transition. I feel confident, let's add a cup of vegetables. Let's add a cup of berries, and, let's add, now it's time for your dairy. Now it's time for, but how do I'm here because I really want to understand more about it. And, element 14, the first page, why we transition the way we transition, what it has to do with our hormones regulating, making sure we don't turn on that those hunger hormones again. How do we keep our metabolism correctly? That is very interesting to me. I just think and I'm just saying all that to say this is thank you for making this group and inviting us to learn about the elements in the life book, because the information there is just the tip of the iceberg. And just what you shared about the FDA and about the net carbs and those types of things, that's what we need to know for our own information, but also as we talk to others about this plan, when they say, even people who aren't on Optavia that are just, oh, how can you do this? Or I do that, or, just being knowledgeable, right, and being informed and reading those labels, because they all lie. I mean, even I have a friend in Europe right now, and she was talking about their protein bars, and she said, it's so funny because it says energy, not calories. And I think, how brilliant is that? Because that just helps you understand that if something has 285 calories, you are going to need to create or expend that much energy to pay for that.
Yeah.
To allot for that. It's more like a bank account. But we don't think about calories. It's like another planet. It might as well be another planet. Net carbs, calories, zero fat, no sugar, but it actually affects your insulin. Right. We live in a very dangerous environment for our health.
Yeah, I agree. But I will say, Kim, that doing the process will give you a much better understanding and make you a better coach.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid.
I think there might be a lot of people that are afraid to get off the fuelings. And I think I'm not a coach. I didn't desire to be a coach. I came out of a career of teaching where I had people and just wasn't going to be responsible for a bunch of people. Although that's great. But I've spent the last year, at least I hit my goal last year. And then I've been trying to lose 3 more pounds for a year. Consequently, I've stayed right there. But then I developed, as I started to eat real food, then the Optavia, I'm like, some of these health consequences my personal body had, I was like, I can't do that anymore. And so, but I desperately want to not regain. I don't think emotionally I'm prepared to take gaining it back. I have a heart for the people who haven't transitioned. And I think the information is here and pure. And I see you digesting it, Lizabeth, and telling about it, even though I've stayed in the last little range. I've been there a whole year. Last year at this time, I wore the same size, which is fun because I, haven't changed sizes anymore. But it's just, I think people are afraid to go ahead, but because I was feeling not so well, I made myself go ahead, but I only eat I have 2 good yogurt with a little of this, and I do the 5-in-1. And then I enjoy a big meal at the end of the day of lean and green. But just in the last week, I promise, or 2, I've realized that I could have a little more food. Otherwise, I weigh every day. Otherwise, if I have a little bit too much, I go up. So I'm very sensitive. And I think I think that's part of my body makeup. But anyway, thank you, because I think this desperately needs to be addressed, because I feel bad for people getting in a worse position, regaining and back up and try to emotionally get back to that place again. Chutes and ladders, human chutes and ladders.
Well, I'll just schedule it for next Monday night and just do a transition. Let's just do a transition Zoom call and we can focus specifically on that, because I do want to try to get through these other 2, the rest of these elements.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was so anxious.
That's all right. No, it's really important. And that just lets me know the importance that people really want to talk about transition. So let's do it. Let's do it next Monday night. I'll go ahead and set that up and send out a link, and we'll see how many people show up. He does talk on page 188. I'm still in Habits of Health, by the way. I'll go back to the life book in just a second. He talks about the SnackWell craze. I don't know if those of you who are my age or older remember SnackWells, and they're low fat and they're so, but he talks about, we took the fat out, but we had to replace it with something. And so you either replace it with protein or carbs, but protein is expensive. So they end up replacing it with carbs, and carbs just cause us to make more fat. So it just, that whole thing of, if we're going to reduce something, let's not just mamby-pamby, that's my word, just reduce things and not think about the consequences of what we have to add. So then he goes, so is higher fat now recommended? Only if you don't want to lose weight and be healthy. A reasonable amount of healthy fat is necessary. You do have to have that, but and he says olive oil, coconut oil, medium chain triglycerides, avocado, nuts, seeds, and of course oil from healthy fish, but avoid vegetable and seed oils like soybean, sunflower, corn, and canola oil. Do you know, if you go to the a restaurant and you ask for oil and vinegar on your salad, most likely you're getting soybean oil, just FYI.
Oh shit.
Yeah, olive oil is too expensive. I know. Unless you were at a fine Italian restaurant, you're most likely getting soybean oil. Do the amount of calories that I consume matter? And he said, I wish I could give you a hall pass, but as your dad told you when you were a kid, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Your total calorie intake still affects your weight management system. A large leafy salad with a drizzle of olive oil and balsamic vinegar is better than a Snickers bar, but you already knew that. I loved that, this little sense of humor there. It is important that it's not just important how many calories you eat, but what those calories are coming from. So that is super important. So back to element 8, just really, the element is actually talking mostly about the importance of creating habits. And he talks about, you've got these goals. It's reaching those goals is all about your choices, the choices that you make, and how important it is to create those habits, create a daily schedule. You all know how important routine is to me, how important planning is to me. I post my weekly plans every week. I have menu plans since I got married. It is a discipline that I created for myself, out of an abundance of need to save money. And I had to plan what we were eating, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, with the kids to make sure that we had enough food for the whole week. And I had to stretch that grocery budget. And so I started menu planning and grocery shopping. If I didn't need it for breakfast, lunch, dinner, or snack, I didn't buy it. We didn't have extras. And so that habit of making a menu plan, I used to do it 2 weeks at a time because my husband got paid every 2 weeks. Now I grocery shop every week. But I have developed a habit. I have a routine. I also have a routine for when I eat, because I did 5 and 1 for 67 weeks. 67 weeks, people. 67. That's a lot. And you can bet if you do something for 67 weeks, it's going to be a habit. I don't even think, I know exactly when it is 6:15, 9:45, 2:30, 5 o'clock, 7:30. My stomach says, hey, it's time for another, or my brain says, I don't know who's actually talking anymore. But I know it's time to eat, and I have created that routine, and it's, whatever the clock is for you, however you have to create your routine, as much as you can create a routine, I would strongly encourage you to do that. And the importance of following that routine for being successful. It's one of the biggest things for me is have a routine, be prepared, have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you will not succeed. It's just plain and simple. You will fall back into your old routines. You'll fall back into your old habits, if you do not plan to succeed. Thoughts on habits, times of eating. I'm not going to stop recording because otherwise the other video is only going to be like 20 minutes long or less. So, but if anybody has thoughts on element 8, we'll talk about them, and then we're going to run through element 9.
Well, yeah. Plan, yeah. Capital P. It's a big deal. And it is our new, one thing it did for us is we are retired. My husband and I both did Optavia. We didn't think it would work. I lost 85 pounds. He lost 60. He went down. His insulin cost went down so much that it paid for our fuelings. I went off of all diabetic medicine. I'm now at a normal blood sugar. I don't take much medicine at all. But that being said, the plan is primary. But when our kids now know when we visit them out of town, they're scattered all around. We have to eat at 5 o'clock. because we've we've been doing fuelings all day, and when it's 5 o'clock, so they've adjusted. We get to restaurants earlier. They've begun to, but they had to change to fit our schedule, which has been interesting because you don't, as the adults, you don't press your schedule that much, but we just say we're going to do that, and the results have kind of spoken for themselves, and they've been glad to support us in that. But
yeah.
So we do 2 more fuelings after dinner, so 5 and then 8:30, and my husband does a big breakfast. So we're kind of done our own thing. I don't do that breakfast. I do fuelings 5 and 1. But anyway, yes, plan is primary, and it adds a structure to a retired life. It's time, 3 o'clock, time to eat. We sit down and have something. So it's good. Yeah. Plan, big deal.
Awesome. Anybody else have anything? Okay, in element 9, it's how do you use fuelings to reach a healthy weight? So this one talks a lot about, obviously, the fuelings. On page 194, I'm in the life book. I'm going to hop over to habits of health in just a second, but in the middle of the page, it says, in terms of addressing the psychological aspects, as you have seen in the elements you have already completed, we have spent a bunch of time going over managing our emotions, our thoughts, our choices, and our relationships to help you become the dominant force in your life by taking responsibility. And along with having a plan, being prepared, my word, if you have been following me at all on YouTube, you know that my word for this journey has been steadfast. That has been, and my sweet sisters, 2 of my sisters, had a sweet little bracelet made for me at the Bobble Bar, and it says steadfast on it. And I jokingly said, oh, good, my husband will be really happy about that, because now I don't have to get another tattoo. I still might, because I really think I need steadfast tattooed on me somewhere, but I just haven't decided. Anyway, but take control. This is your life, and we have got to stop letting other people and their needs and their whatever kind of take charge of our health and our lives. And I always kind of roll my eyes when people say, well, life got in the way. Well, but we all live, and you have to choose. Like, you allowed situations, and that's where I think we have to take responsibility instead of blaming it on life. Just take the responsibility and say, I stopped doing what I was supposed to do. Like, it was my fault. Like, don't blame it on life. But it doesn't, I really do think that, I'm sure there are situations where that are out of your control. So, your spouse all of a sudden is, in intensive care, and you're sitting in the hospital all the time. And that does make life very difficult. I think in times like that, you just have to say, I'm going to do the best I can for this time period, but my focus is getting my husband better, or my focus is my child who is struggling with addiction, or, whatever the situation is. Yes, life does throw things at us, but you have to make choices, and instead of blaming it on life, just say, like, I made the choice to focus on my child. I made the choice to focus on my husband. And when life calms down, I will make the choice back to myself. So I'm not trying to be judgmental and say, oh no, it's all your fault. But do learn to take responsibility and take control. And sometimes you do have to put your foot down and say, we're going to eat at 5 o'clock, right? So kids, make dinner reservations so we can eat at 5 o'clock, because that's fueling time for me. And my whole family knows that's 5 o'clock for me too. So we always eat. We show up at the restaurant at 4:30 so that we can eat by 5, which is fine, because then you get a good table.
Fueling's packed to the hospital. I can tell my story.
They do that.
And I went off to the grocery store. My husband had a heart attack, and I came back and I said, I'm frustrated. I'm not going to do this anymore. And he goes, I was just thinking we need to stick with it because we both did it. Wow. And so I'm like, okay, it's important because I really feel like this has been life or death for us. And so you can take that stuff. My daughter-in-law said, okay, pack a bag for the hospital. They're getting ready to transport him by ambulance. She said, take your snacks. Oh, okay. And off we go. Why feel worse in a bad situation by feeling badly about what you did? I mean, and I'm not judge.
Like, I hadn't really thought about that. That is a very wise statement right there. Very wise statement. Yeah. So I loved on page 195 where he gives the 5 little advantages to the fuelings. They provide all the necessary vitamins and minerals. They have amazing variety. Some of the variety went away, but apparently some of it's coming back, which is really nice for you guys. I'm done with fuelings. Like I'm out. I'm done. But you guys enjoy them, and I want you to have them. The nutritional footprint is identical. It creates the ideal state of metabolism because they're all low glycemic. And the healthy protein source helps to protect your muscles. And this is that whole EAA thing again. I was talking to a nutritionist last week who's very athletic, and just another person who I know people like the EAAs, and God bless you, and please have them. And I'm not saying not to have them, but I also do not appreciate when people are told they have to have them, because that's not why they were designed. So, but I'm not going to poke that bear again. They are portable and easily prepared to overcome any logistical barriers. There we go, hospitals. And they can be used long-term to provide a solution to your every 3-hour fueling for people who want to continue to have them in maintenance. I know a lot of people do continue using fuelings in maintenance, and that is totally fine. You do you. A lot of people love the shakes in their coffee in the morning, or they love to have the bars at night before bed, or whatever. Like, if you like them and you want to continue to have them, and I honestly I have a stash. And I will, I may do another couple of weeks of 5-in-1 at some point in the spring, depending on how things go, the first part of maintenance. So, I'm not saying I'll never have fuelings again, but for me, my preference is to make my food. I love to cook. I love to bake, and I love to try new things, and I love to learn. And so that's kind of what I'm going to do. And I will be sharing that. I plan on my YouTube channel to be doing lots of healthy recipes beyond lean and greens, healthy snack kind of things. Maybe someday I'll have a show on Food Network.
You go, girl.
That would be awesome.
No, I wouldn't be able to do that, but I wouldn't have the patience for it. But I definitely am going to continue to share and help people through maintenance and transition as well. But the fuelings themselves are such a great way. They are an incredible vehicle. And I can't say enough of how grateful I am to the Optavia program and what I learned about food and about fueling my body, and that it is not a diet. There's a paragraph in Habits of Health that I really wanted to read, and it really spoke to me when I read this, but it is something that I continue to think about all of the time. It says, now I realize, this is on page 201 in Habits of Health, and right in the middle of the page. Now I realize that meal replacements alone can't do the trick. As I've already discussed, isolated weight control strategies that don't address the whole person and their unhealthy lifestyle are universally unsuccessful. In fact, there's not one documented case of a standalone diet, drug, or dietary supplement that has brought about consistent, sustained weight control over the long term by itself. A well-orchestrated, comprehensive approach that includes lifestyle change and proper support is extremely effective in sustaining long-term health. Even Optavia. If you do not do the whole program, and by the whole program, I mean you are reading the LifeBook and Habits of Health, you are eating the fuelings, you are in contact with your coach or a coach. I don't care if you have a lousy coach and your coach never talks to you, either find another coach or stop complaining, right? But you need a good coach. You really need a good coach. And fourth is community. Get involved in, I mean, you are involved in, obviously, you're involved in community right now because you're here. And being part of a community is the fourth, I call them pillars. They're just the important aspects. If you do not work to change yourself, and if you are just, I'm going to do Optavia 5-in-1, lean and green, I'm going to eat the fuelings, okay, you'll lose weight. If you don't follow through, and the weight loss portion is only half the battle. You are only halfway there. I am only halfway there when I reached the end of 5-in-1 and started transition. And I am not even 3/4 of the way there. I am barely past the halfway mark in transition. This is a lifelong struggle. It is a lifelong battle. I have to make permanent changes if I want to have permanent success. And I cannot stress that enough, that if you treat it like a diet, then it will treat you like a diet. And like every other diet in the world, the weight's going to come right back on. But if you will do the work, if you will go through the LifeBook, if you will really internalize the things that you are reading, the things that I am saying, the things that you read, that you get from your coach, that, you know, if you will internalize those things, if you'll do your own research, you can change your mindset. You can change the way you look at life as a whole. And it's not just food, it's your relationships with people. It's your, you know, your surroundings, the things that you involve yourself in. If you are cautious about those things, if you are intentional about those things, you can keep the weight off. It doesn't have to come back on. And gosh darn it, it is not. I am not going to let it happen. I cannot let it happen.
Can't either.
And, it's, you know, I've worked too hard for it to undo all of that work. So 67 weeks, people, 67, right? Like, what's that? What's the 6-inch ribbon crawls? That's what I see if you watch, if you're an Elsa fan. 6 inches, 67 weeks. If you really, if you haven't read the LifeBook yet, get to stepping, get reading, try to work on an element a week. Even if you're behind where we are, it's so important. I'm right where you guys are. I am not jumping ahead, and I'm reading stuff in the LifeBook now that I'm way past. Like, this is all pre-transition for me. I've looked at the farther elements, but I haven't really worked through them. Because I just want to kind of stick with what you guys are doing. But it's so important. It's so important to work and learn. And I wish that I had taken that part more seriously at the beginning, because I think I would have done even better than I did. So
the process also teaches. That's what I've loved about it. how the process has taught me things, and things I wanted my husband to know about food that I knew. It taught him rather than just told him. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. I like that. As a teacher, I really like that.
Yeah.
I would also encourage you in Habits of Health to read pages 211 all the way through 213 are fantastic explanations of the different types of foods that you need to have, that you need to be working into your lean and green meals, and what is going to be the best. Page 214, there's a secrets to success in the left margin. That is really important. And I did also want to point out, so if you are, he talks about you can do this program without buying Optavia Fuelings. And because that was originally designed that way, but the Fuelings are great because they're convenient and they're more balanced. If you, on pages 278 and 279, these are, I would not look at these as fueling substitutes, because you can get into dangerous territory by going back and forth. I think that if you are going to do fuelings and don't try to find substitutes for them. If you can't afford to do the fuelings, and this happens a lot, and we hear people all the time say, I have to stop because I can't afford to do this anymore. Pages 278 and 279 are actually a list of 100-ish calorie, low glycemic things that you can eat. These are great. While it doesn't say these are for maintenance, this list is a great list to have if you're trying to figure out as you move into maintenance, what can I have to replace a fueling? You'll probably need to eat closer to 2 of these or 1.5 of these, because 1 is probably not enough. You're probably going to have to shoot for 150 to 200 calories instead of 100 calories. And a lot of them are fruits. And I would say that fruits are great, but you really probably want to have protein along with that fruit. It's just, I think it's better for your blood sugar to combine the two. Cats are crazy. So I would say, if you're gonna have an apple, have some peanut butter or a cheese stick, or Laughing Cow with it. Just, try to get a little bit of protein in there, a hard-boiled egg, something along those lines. So
yeah, as a diabetic here, one of the first things I learned 30 years ago is you don't eat anything it's called unopposed. And so always a protein, a carb, and a fat together if you possibly can. Because I can't do these fruits. I can never have fruit, which drives me crazy. But anyway, yeah, I have a continuous glucose monitor on, and so I get to see my blood sugars go up depending on what I'm eating. Okay. Denise knows all about that. And so and like for transition, maybe next week, it's very different for diabetics. Very different. And I have the good fortune that my coach is my former nurse practitioner who's also diabetic. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I have heard too that that diabetics often do transition. They take twice as long. So instead of 6 weeks,
that's true.
Each week they take 2 weeks to do each week.
That's true.
Give your body more time to process.
Yeah, so, and like for me, like when they add in fruit, that's not ever going to happen. So it just depends on your situation. But yes, twice as long, absolutely.
So is there a different addition instead of adding fruit that week, or do you just skip that altogether?
Skip it.
Okay.
Skip it. Yeah. I mean, some diabetics, like what Denise was saying about, being off the medications and stuff, she and her husband may not even be diabetic anymore, So they may be able to do fruit, like, that's the usual. Everybody's different. Everybody's different. So, but being diabetic's not fun. But this is a great program for diabetics.
Yes,
I went on it because my A1C was 7.9 and I couldn't have a knee replacement. And when my ARMP reached out to me, she said, I'm going to save your life. And gosh darned if she didn't.
Wow.
So there you go.
That's incredible. One day we're going to meet, Harriet, you and me.
Yeah, we are, because I used to come to Tennessee every other year.
Well, come on back.
I'm going to.
Yeah.
Love to.
Yeah. Actually, I'd love to meet all of you guys. So I wish, what I think would be so much fun, and of course it's probably not going to happen, but I think somebody needs to rent a big house on the beach somewhere. I'll fly wherever. You tell me where to go. I'll go there.
That'd be fabulous.
It'd be awesome.
We can all get together and just hang out for a few days. I say the beach because, that's my happy place, but I would really go anywhere. So maybe not New Orleans. If you live in New Orleans, I'm sorry, but that's like my least favorite city. My favorite city is Barcelona. So if you live in Barcelona, host a party, I'll come. I love Barcelona. That's my favorite. That's my very favorite city ever. All right. It is 7:01.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes. Thank
Yes.
you.
This has been great.
We'll close. Yes, and I will go ahead and schedule that transition chat, and we can just talk. I will kind of share. At that point, I will be done. And I will tell you right now that next Monday night is my first dinner on maintenance, and it will include a glass of wine. So don't kill me. It'll just be one. It'll just be one. So I promise I'll be good. I'm just 67 weeks, people. 67.
Awesome.
It's actually 73 weeks because 6 weeks of transition. So that's a long time to go without a glass of wine. And I'm not even a big drinker. I just can't wait to
or ice cream or anything. Yeah.
Right. Or no, because I make ice cream out of shake. So I'm good with that.
Well, yeah, but yeah, okay.
Anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
I'll be toasted, Carla. Yeah.
And Harriet.
I haven't had you for so long, so who knows? Yeah. So if I'm slurring my words, you'll all know. Don't tell anyone. It'll be a secret. Yeah, and all the people then who watch this recording one. So I just told everybody. So anyway.
Don't record that one.
Well, it's already recorded. So
No, the one with the wine.
Oh, okay. Well, I can turn off the recording if it gets really bad. It won't.
All right. Bye-bye.
You guys have a great night.
Thanks.
Bye. Chat with
Bye.
you all. Oh, Jean figured out how to turn her camera
I did.
on.
Well, I was
Yay.
driving and listening, and
Oh,
I'm finally
okay.
home. But
All
thank you.
You're welcome. It was so good to see you guys. I'm glad a bunch of you showed up today. That makes me feel good. See you guys later.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.